Welcome into Double Up, a very special episode. We're back here, surprise, surprise, in Sydney, Australia. It's Everest week, richest race run on the turf coming up on Friday night. I'm Dubs Anderson, joined by a very special guest here, Jason Witham from Sky Racing. Jace, the viewers know you all over FanDuel TV, international expert, but great week, mate. It's finally Everest time.
Well, the bridge is a bit of a giveaway, isn't it, Dubs? You picked a good spot to record this little episode, but yeah, it's a cracking week, isn't it? Just can't wait for it. It's when Sydney racing really comes alive. It's the biggest event now in Sydney racing, and perhaps the biggest race in Australia. It's sort of slowly taking over from the Melbourne Cup. It creates so much interest here in Sydney. It's a buzz. There's so many events going on. I know you hate an event.
Oh, mate, we'll find our way to a couple of red carpet shows. Don't you worry about that. $20 million Australian on the line. 12 entries. As we tape this, yet to go through the post-draw, but we're going to get all the analysis, best bets, maybe a couple of names to know. But talk to us about the recent news coming across now, Group 1.
Yeah, it's a great news for the race and for marketing of the race and I think for the race's future as well. Like it wasn't a Group 1 for the number of years that we've seen it already with the 8 runnings, but now it's been given Group 1 status, which is fantastic for the race, and I think for getting even more prize money and even better quality horses. Although we've got the best in Australia, perhaps now we'll see some more horses coming from overseas as well to compete in this race. So it is now officially the Group 1 TAB Everest.
The TAB Everest coming up this Saturday locally, but Friday night on FanDuel TV. Fantastic racing, even better wagering. Talk to us about the unique slot style entry. How does a runner gain entry into the Everest?
Well, it's much like the Pegasus, like you've seen the slot holders pay for a certain slot each time that they go in. The way it works here in Australia is that they pay for 3 years worth of slots, so it's about 1.8 million Australian dollars, perhaps about 1.2 million dollars, to get 3 years worth of slots, and then you choose your horse in that slot, and they race under your name. So we see lots of different bloodstocks and trainers having slots as well as private investors as well. So some of the bigger names in racing have got slots here in Australia. At this stage, they've shared it around a little bit in terms of winning the race, but it's always a very interesting, jostling in terms of getting which horse for which slot in the lead up in the couple of months. Some slot holders will put a horse in early, much like TAB did with Bella Nipotina, and some like Coolmore this year are waiting until a couple of days before the race, who are yet to really announce their slot. They've got Storm Boy, the Justify colt, Justify doing exceptionally well here in Australia, of course. And one or two others as well. Switzerland, another one who just came onto the scene by winning a group race on the weekend, who they may elect to back up. He's a very nice colt too. So it's very much a game of chess in the lead up to the race, but on the day they're racing for $20 million.
Now, Jace, it's easily to get distracted here. I mean, the whole city, the buzz continues to build towards the Everest coming up this weekend. We've gone over the entry process. Give us a couple of big storylines. There's 12 entries, 12 runners going into the starting gates. A chance that we may see a couple of familiar faces from the last couple of editions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a lot of different storylines here, Dubs. You've got the old timers, if you like Private Eye, who's been placed in this race twice. You've got a number of mares who are great chances in this race. It's quite amazing that a mare has never won or run a place in the history of this race. But
until maybe this weekend,
this weekend. Bella Nipotina, Sunshine in Paris. You've got a lot of nice mares going around in this race this year. I think the 3-year-olds are going to be especially hard to beat. We saw Yes burst onto the scene and be the first 3-year-old to win in 2019. I think this year there's 2 very nice 3-year-olds. And Traffic Warden, James Cummings has him. I think he's really peaking at the right time. And Growing Empire, the Victorian, who comes off a slashing second in Group 1 company around Moonee Valley last start. They're the 2 for me that are going to be really hardest to beat. The weight for age scale, Dubs, is the thing that does it really for the 3-year-olds.
Yeah, it can certainly be that deciding factor, and maybe it will be this Friday night. You mentioned James Cummings, JC, one of the best trainers back here in Australia. Is that going to be a name to know for the bettors joining us on Friday night?
Well, absolutely. Chris Waller, Kira Ma, they're your two best trainers in Australia. Of course, James Cummings with the powerful Godolphin brand always produces his best at this time of year. He's having a really good start to the season as well. But I think Kira Ma is going to have 3 runners in the race. You're going to be looking at Chris Waller runners right across the carnival as well in some of the other big races. They're the 2 trainers you want to be looking out for. In terms of jockeys, James McDonald, he's your man.
Always
He's winning everything. You know, he's on 99 Group 1 wins at the moment.
It's unbelievable.
Chance for 100 Group 1 wins. He's only just turned 30.
Ryan Moore, Irad Ortiz, J-Mac, James McDonald, we'll get to see in full flight coming up this weekend from Royal Randwick. Mate, it looks to be a fantastic card outside of the Everest as well. The King Charles, we're getting set for the return of a big superstar in the sport.
We are indeed. Pride of Jenny, Dubs, set the world of racing alight back in the spring with that Queen Elizabeth victory over 2,000 or a mile and a quarter. Led at the 1,000 metres.
Mate, I was going to ask you, was that one of the best performances you've ever seen in your lifetime?
Well, we were there, and you know the hairs on the back of our neck were standing up, watching this incredible horse be 30 lengths in front with 5 furlongs to go. It's just a tactic that's never been really done in Australian racing. You might see them lead by 3 or 4 or 5 lengths. You know, like you see your Might and Powers used to go out years ago and do that sort of thing, and they were fantastic performances as well. But Pride of Jenny has just reinvented the wheel when it comes to tactics of racing, getting out to that huge lead and being able to just break their hearts. And she's going to be fantastic to watch once again. I think she's going to employ similar tactics. She's already been successful in Group 1 races this campaign, winning the Fian Stakes down in Melbourne just a couple of weeks ago, employing similar tactics there.
Yeah,
she's just one of those horses that people love to get behind. And Darren Flindell, our premium race caller here in Sydney,
one of the best.
There's a local artist who painted Pride of Jenny 30 lengths in front over the famous Royal Randwick racecourse, and then presented him with this painting that he now hangs proudly in his race calling box.
And Jace, you're an international analyst. You've just been over to the States earlier this year for the Kentucky Derby. Tactics is a big part of it. You know, North American racing, predominantly early speed, is going to rule the game. But Pride of Jenny threw it all out the window. Maybe we see the same again. We saw Bob Baffert recently all over social media take a look at this performance. He's one of the greats in the game, and even Bob Baffert was wowed by that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and understandably, and I think everybody in world racing just was aghast at the tactics of the Pride of Jenny team when and this horse and what it's capable of doing, the sectionals that it's capable of running. Of course, tactics play, I think, probably more a role in Australian racing than they do in US racing. It's certainly more of a game of chess. They come out a little bit slower, try and find their positions. You don't really want to be sort of 3 or 4 wide. You want to sort of find that slot and find a little bit of cover. So generally it's all done pretty uniformly. Apart from Pride of Jenny, who has decided that she's going to have a new way of race tactics, and that is to just get out and run. And perhaps more like a US horse.
Unbelievable indeed there. And for our viewers, I guess watching along on Friday night, American progeny really starting to have an impact from what we've seen over the last couple of years in Australian racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Justifiers are doing exceptionally well. We've seen some good 2-year-olds getting around, and they're really only just starting to come into their own now. The Justifiers, of course, the American Pharaohs also doing exceptionally well. There's a couple of Triple Crown winners. We've seen American influence certainly starting to really increase here in Australia, and I think that's symptomatic of the fact that stallions are able to be jetted around the world now, and we're seeing a lot of that as well. Through places like Cornwall, who are big players.
And Jace, you're an international player yourself. You'll dabble with the American racing. You're at the Kentucky Derby earlier this year. We'll see at Royal Randwick this Friday night. What's the big difference, or was there a standout from your travels that really took you back?
Dubs, tell you what, I love the Kentucky Derby. It was just one of the best.
It's one of the big ones,
best racing experiences I've had in my life. I got to tell you, it was such a special event. And just like the hospitality of all the people there in Louisville, and it was just an amazing couple of days. Went there for Oaks Day, went there for Derby Day. I was able to do a little bit of work for Sky Racing while I was over there. We have our big carnivals at TAB Everest that we're going to be at on Saturday. We have our Melbourne Cups down at Flemington and Victoria. They're huge events, but the Kentucky Derby made them look like a tea party by comparison for mine. It was just to see everybody there in their finery and all their outlandish gear, and the smell of cigars and the mint juleps, and
doesn't get much better.
It's just iconic, my friend, and the racing itself was fantastic. The Kentucky Derby was such a closely fought finish this year, and in the other racing, to see the grass racing, the dirt racing side by side, that's something we don't see here in Australia. So that was a novelty of sorts. But the enthusiasm that the American people have for their racing really impressed me.
And James, I guess that's a bit of a difference. A very competitive sports landscape market in North America. Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA. Back here in Australia, it really feels like racing is a top 3, top 5 sport right now. It's that popular.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is very much in the limelight. You're going to see Everest-related stories all over the commercial television news all week. You're going to see lots of stuff on socials about the TAB Everest. It gets people who are not racing people into racing. So it bridges that gap between non-racing people and people who do follow racing. It becomes a mainstream sport. You'll see people in the streets and they'll ask you what you like in the Everest. They might not have a bet throughout the year, but this is the race that they want to tune into. This is the race they want to come to. We see in Australia that there's a real crossover between the mainstream sports. You guys have got your NBA, your NFL, your Major League Baseball. In Australia, it's our codes of football. Our rugby league, our Australian rules football or AFL. We also have a football or a soccer as well. As well as having basketball and a whole range of other sports. But in fact, our new CEO here at TAB, Gil McLaughlin, was the CEO of the AFL. Perhaps Australia's biggest sport, and now moving over to work in racing as the CEO of the biggest betting company in Australia in TAB, of which we are affiliated here at Sky Racing.
And the more I hang out with you, it sounds like we can expect a lot of people to come up this week asking for our top selections. But I'm going to save mine, Jace, until Friday night. Friday night on FanDuel TV, you can watch the complete card. It's going to be second to none. The Everest, $20 million on the line.
Didn't tell you also, there's a little bit of a whisper going around, Dubs, that maybe King Charles is going to be at Royal Randwick for the King Charles.
The King Charles.
I mean, this is going to be one hell of a race. We spoke about progeny, but Fangirl, who is just one of the real champions of our sport, she is also in the race, having won the 7 stakes. One of the best mares that we've seen in this country in recent years. Of course, following on from the Great Winks. She's kind of taken the next mantle, in my opinion, and she is going to be extremely hard to beat. There's only about half a point between them in the betting at this stage.
Wow.
I think Pride of Jenny's about $2.30 and Fangirl's about $2.80. And there's a third wheel into the race now. One of my favourite horses called Chaya Wolf.
Okay.
Who just came out and won the Epsom, the Group 1, one of the most famous Group 1 miles in Australia in our spring, and he is just a superstar in waiting. Joe Pride, who's won the Everest, but think about it, last time he's got him, and he thinks he can win anything he goes in, and I think he might be able to upset them. He's about 5-1, so I'm thinking maybe it could be a bit of a surprise, but it's going to be a great clash between those three, and they're not the only chances. That's a cracking race, the King Charles. Maybe with King Charles there to present the trophy, I reckon you might be able to interview him.
Can we get him here on FanDuel TV?
I don't see why not.
Hey,
you got some influence, mate.
Jason Witham, King Charles, this Friday night. It's Everest Day. You can watch on FanDuel TV. We'll come up with all the latest and greatest content in that lead-up, top picks on the FanDuel Racing socials. And, of course, you can jump in and play at FanDuel Racing. Richest race run on the turf. Are you game enough, Jace, this early in the week to give us your endorsement? You've got to wait, barrier draw, see how it's all shaping out.
I think the barrier draw is going to be important. As I said, at this stage for the Everest, I'm thinking Growing Empire and Traffic Warden, the 2 3-year-old colts. I think they're cherry ripe for a peak performance. I think with the weight for age scale, they're going to get in beautifully. And I think maybe they're the ones on the up, whereas some of the others perhaps have either plateaued or have perhaps regressed a little bit. So going to go that way. King Charles, not too sure yet. I'm going to have to dive into the form a little bit. I want to be with Chaya Wolf.
Yeah.
But Pride of Jenny is just such an excitement machine, and Fangirl is such a classy mare. I'm just not sure which way to go yet. I mean, there's the richest race for country trained horses as well, the Kosciuszko. That's dominated a lot of talk, especially in a lot of areas that I get out to, Dubs, out in the country areas. Another race that sees not so much a slot race, but a competition race where people can buy tickets into a competition. 14 lucky people are drawn out. They then do a negotiation with a trainer and come up with like a split of the prize money, maybe 50-50, maybe 60-40. And then they get to go to Royal Randwick to watch one of those country trained horses race for like $2 million in prize money.
What an experience. It really is going to be a very special event. You've got the Arc, the Kentucky Derby, and the Everest coming up this Friday night on FanDuel TV. That's Jason Witham. I'm Dubs Anderson. This is Sydney.
Hey.
This is Sydney, baby. Let's go.
Welcome back to Sydney, my man.
Jump in, play along. We'll see you this weekend.